Hello Internet, my name is Broademoore, the weapon spirit, and after being forced to draw blood for so long, I've decided to retire from my job and start drawing something else instead. Something that will be very apparent throughout this video is that I am a disorganized mess. So I started off with the head and chest, continuing over to the arms, the hands, and then the sword. After finishing the sword, I moved on to the waist, hips, legs, and feet, which immediately started to look a bit strange to me. Ignoring all that, I decided I wanted to keep going and make sure I had some extra long and wonky looking legs. After fiddling around with the legs for a bit, I moved on to cleaning up the lines around the chest, adding some abs, as well as placing a rag under the left hand. I had to start moving on to the head and face. Now originally I wanted a helmet, but going over and redoing it over and over and over again, I decided that I didn't want a helmet after all. Instead, I just put an ear and some hair. After finishing all the figure outlines, I decided to move on to the clothes. I wanted a loose cloth over the one shoulder going to the waist, mostly because it would cover quite a bit of detailing that I'd have to do later. I also added some shoulder pads because I think shoulder pads are pretty cool. After finishing that, I drew in the fingers as well as started to darken all of my outlines to make sure everything stood out a little bit more. In the middle of that, I realized I didn't quite like how my legs were turning out, so I decided to erase them and start doing little bits of modifications here and there to see if I can make them in a way I liked. After making them look decent enough, I decided it was time to start adding some armor to the legs as well. Moving on, I added some extra smaller details to everything, like some vertical lines to the chest cloth to give it more of a folded feel. After returning to the legs, I realized that I still really didn't like them, so I got rid of them and did them over from scratch. Eventually I decided that I was just done with these legs and wanted to move on to the armor, which provided its own challenges, but after finally buckling down and Googling what actual plate armor looks like, I found a reference that I really enjoyed, and I'm pretty proud with how they ended up turning out. Continuing to use the Google image as a reference, I realized that I should probably add some armor around the waist and knees. In order to detail the armor, I added some curved lines in order to give a rounded and plated look. After almost finishing my legs, I moved on to some more facial details, darkened up some more lines, and adding some smaller details around the rest of the body. After finishing up most of the smaller details, I decided to start darkening all of my outlines to make sure I was well prepared for my shading. Once that was completed, I moved on to do some light shading as well as some smaller detail work around the hands and arms. Taking a break from everything else, I decided to look at the head and realized that I didn't quite like how it was turning out, so I decided to erase the ear and put over a hood instead, which I think added a better layer of mystery. Immediately after finishing the hood, I decided that I didn't like him floating in the air so much, so I started making him a chair to sit on. After completing the rudimentary chair outline, I moved on to some darker shading. Finishing up, I added some wiggly vertical lines to the chair to give it a bit of a wooden texture, as well as just moved on to all the finer, smaller details I could to make sure everything looks crisp and polished. I appreciate you sticking around to the end. Now go, be creative, and as I used to say in my time, be gonst!